I've asked Nicole to share her experience on this step.
My name is Nicole. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Nicole.
Can you hear me? Okay. So I've been through this process with a Big Book Step Study sponsor, a patient, loving higher power. I'm currently making amends and I'm practicing 10, 11, and 12 on a daily basis. I did not know I was sharing today. I just came here and I was going to the bathroom. And Christina said, "You're sharing." I was like, "Can I go get my, what are we on?" She's like, "Resentments." I said, can I go get my notebook?" So I did the best I could to fly out to my car, get on my knees and grab a notebook. I'm like, I'm looking for names because this is a good step for me. I'm pretty good at resentments. So when I get on my knees, I say my third and my seventh step prayer. And so whatever comes out of my mouth, it's not my fault. This is God. This is totally God. So I'm blaming him for whatever comes out. So I'm not going to tell you how I got here. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a real alcoholic. I belong here. I have pretty much, excuse me, the same story as everybody else. A lot of pain. Myself, a lot of family members with pain, friends with pain that got me here. And I only wanted to do this work so that I could get well. And I'm still not well, so to speak, but I'm getting better. So I was instructed to make a list of names first, institutions and principals, and I had a little extra instruction from my sponsor to make a list of people who, like people who, for me, abuse animals, and there's some other things that I have as well for resentment, the resentment part, and effects, and then later on turnarounds. So, because that's the part that we're on here. This is the first part of the fourth step that we just read. So this was not easy for me because I didn't think that I was quote unquote mean, angry person. But when I started to make the list, it just flowed. And I was meeting with my sponsor at the time, and she was checking the list, and you know, she had to really guide me through this, really guide me through this, because it was, you know, a lot of you know I have children. It was hard for me to put my children's name on it, because I didn't want to be angry with my children. I didn't want to be jealous of my daughter, which I was. I'm not anymore. I didn't want to have any problems. I really didn't want to be a problem person. I didn't want to complain. I just wanted to be, I really just wanted to be a plain old alcoholic. I wanted to complain about the drinking. I didn't want to complain about the people I just wanted to complain about my mother and my ex-husband. That's really what I wanted to do. That's what I thought this was going to be about. But it really went deeper than that. It did. And I didn't know that that's what this was going to be about. I didn't know it was going to go that deep. Like, I didn't know I was going to have problems with teachers, and I didn't know that that was that icky feeling I had, like on Sundays. Thank God that that's what like cracked me open. And I didn't find that out until way later on in this writing. Not even in this writing. Probably until I read, excuse me, probably until I read my fifth step. I made the list, wrote the resentments, wrote my effects, wrote my turnarounds. And it was very clear cut instructions. I had to do it just right. And my sponsor checked the writing probably once a week to make sure I was doing it, made sure I was getting to the bottom of things, not telling the story. And she would say, Nicole, God knows the story. You don't have to tell the story. What is the thing under the thing? She used to say that, the thing under the thing, Nicole. So that I was getting right to the truth of everything. Because she wanted to know the truth, and I needed to know the truth. I had such a problem when I got to the turnarounds to really get to the dishonesty of the resentment, and then in the turnaround, like when it talks about here, when they start talking about we turn back to the list for it held the key to the future. That talks about the turnarounds. And then it goes over here, where had we been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened. That's where we write our turnarounds. And it was so hard for me in the turnaround part. In the selfish part, to ask for what I wanted, to ask for what I didn't want, and in the dishonest part, to really see where I was dishonest. And I'm not saying, like, what did I lie about? What was the lie that I was telling myself? Like, it was so hard for me to see that I was trying to control somebody else's behavior. Like that I was telling myself that I was less than somebody, or I was telling myself that I was better than somebody, or that I was really trying to control outcomes all the time. That was really hard for me, especially with my children, especially with my ex-husband. Really, you know what, with the whole world. And I still do it, but I can see it now. I couldn't see it before I was doing this work, and in sobriety, it's a really, really yucky feeling. So I'll try to pop through some of my, I'll read through a couple of the resentments, like all the way through, because that's what I was taught to do. Because when I was sitting out there and I was coming to these meetings and I was going through this writing, and I didn't want to go through this writing, and I never thought it was going to end, and people sat up here with their notebooks, whether we were on resentments or fears or the sex inventory, and they did this. It motivated me to keep doing my writing. So that's what I'm going to do. And there's something else I wanted to say. Whenever we're on the fourth part, the fourth step, and we talk about resentments, people don't always share about, we're always so focused on the people part, like the resentments and the people. I feel like we don't always talk about the principals and the resentments with principals and the resentments with institutions. For me, principals had a huge part of my writing, and I don't know if I grabbed the right notebook. I have a lot of notebooks. Principals were huge in my writing. Institutions too. It was a huge chunk of my writing. Not that little people who part that I told you about. That was a little extra instruction from my sponsor. But the institutions and the principals, definitely. That, I can see in my life, that played a huge part where that set me up for a lot of fear, especially with the principals. I had a upbringing where principals played a huge part where it was set up to. And I'm not blaming people, and I don't want to be a victim here, but it just set up a very fearful upbringing and into adulthood, where I was kind of just put in a place where I thought my only outlet was to drink. That was my only coping skill. So to get rid of that angst and that, because I thought my face was going to freeze like this if I made that face, like, Nikki, your face is going to freeze like that. I was like, shit, God, if I made that face, or if I said this, or if I did that, this was what was going to happen. So there were a lot of principles in this part of the writing for me. Institutions, a lot of institutions. So, and I don't have that notebook, and I wish I didn't have enough time because Christina put me on the spot. Christina's going to go on this list now. No, I'm not. This is right where I'm supposed to be. And if I'm all over the place, I apologize. But it's God's fault. So I just want to stress, it's not just about people. There's a huge part of institutions, maybe not for you, but it was for me. And the principals too. So I'll just read through a couple, whether you want to hear it or not. And this is my first notebook, so this was the very beginning. So right here, my mom, perfect. Mom, she yells at my kids. I live with my mother. It's not so easy. And my children. So what does it affect? It affects my self-esteem, my ambitions, my security, my pride, my personal relationships, and my fear. So go over to the turnaround. Where was I selfish? I didn't want her to yell at my kids. I didn't want to listen to her yelling at my kids. I wanted her to stop thinking she could discipline my kids. I wanted her to go to Al-Anon. I wanted her to stop being a victim. I wanted to know everything was going to be okay. So that was my selfish part. What was my dishonesty? I didn't express my true feelings, unreasonable expectations, none of my business, and not about me. Told myself I was less than, told myself I was better than, told myself I could somehow control their behavior, told myself I could judge them, I told myself I knew what was best for them. Self-seeking, overly kind, gossiped, acted aloof, ignored, pretended, unkind expressions, and control. Fear. I feared other people's opinions, not being liked, not being loved. Rejection, ridicule, failure, no control, being less than, better than, intimacy, and confrontation. So I have probably 50 to 75 resentments on my mother, maybe more. because there's 2 more notebooks out there, and every time I finished a name, I'd have to get on my knees and pray for 15 more minutes. So there's mom all over notebooks out in my car. But that's a basic. And I remember writing on her another self, in the selfish part, I wanted to feel safe. That's all I really wanted from my mother. I wanted to know everything was going to be okay. And basically, I just wanted her to be a different kind of mom. I wanted her to be a different kind of grandmother. Am I going to change her? No. No. Here's the ex-husband. I just switched the subject. Here he is. I don't want to read that one. I will. Whatever. God did this. Okay. Stop paying all the bills when I filed for divorce. What does it affect? My self-esteem, my pocketbook, sex relations, ambitions, security, pride, fear, personal relationships. Where was I selfish? I wanted him to fulfill his responsibilities and pay the bills. I didn't want to be left with all the debt. I didn't want to have to avoid phone calls. I didn't want to have to snoop. I wanted to feel safe. I didn't want to have to look for sympathy. I wanted to be able to speak up without consequences. Where was I dishonest? Told only what I wanted known, omitted the truth, unreasonable expectations, not about me. Told myself I was less than, told myself I was better than, told myself I could somehow control their behavior, told myself I could judge them, told myself I knew what was best for them. Self-seeking, gossiped, overly kind, acted aloof, ignored unkind expressions, and control. What was my fear here? Other people's opinions, not being liked, not being loved, rejection, ridicule, failure, abandonment, no control, being less than, better than, intimacy, and confrontation. When I say intimacy, I don't mean like physical intimacy. I mean like telling the truth, like back and forth telling the truth. Now, I am completely, at that point, completely afraid to speak up to this guy. Because, like I said, I wanted to speak up without consequences. Today, I'm not afraid to speak up to him. I'm not afraid to tell the truth. There's a way to hang up the phone. I have gone to court with him. It's just a whole different set of circumstances as a result of doing this work. As a result of doing this work. Yeah, I don't know. That was a shock to read that. And I don't think I want to read anymore. I was just at a meeting Thursday night in Bolton, and we were on the 5th step, but I'm not going to say too much about the 5th step. I just want to say that I mean this with all my heart. I never thought that I was going to finish this writing. I really didn't. And like I said, every time I finished a part, my sponsor would say, now Nicole, get on your knees. Ask God if there's any more names, or if there's any, and there always was, so there was always more writing, and I'm like, God, I'm never gonna finish this. And, throughout the writing, I always had excuses, like, you know, Sue, I have kids. Like, I've got stuff. Like, I don't have the right place to write. I live with my mother. She's like, "Okay, can't you go to Barnes and Noble? Like, why can't you write in your car?" I'm like, I don't even fit in my car. Like, there was just always something, you know? And then I got into a situation. I'm sorry, I keep coughing. Excuse me, I've just gotten over a little illness, so sorry, bear with me. So, I was in an incredibly painful situation, a really horrible living situation where I didn't really have any choice but to write. That's really all I wanted to do was write. So I finished the writing. And, you know, the last part of this writing is the sex inventory, and I would be in the shower and names would come and I'm like, oh my God, like this is awful. Like, so I finished, and all there was to do was escape and read, you know, meet with my sponsor and read my fifth. And, you know, I shared on Thursday night that was God. It was the most loving experience I've ever had with another human being. I really mean that. Talk about intimacy and just telling the truth to somebody, reading this information. And I don't have anything in these notebooks that I never thought I would tell somebody. It's just things that I wrote down that when I would like turn the page, I'm like, I don't even remember writing this. Like, who wrote this? Like, some things were like, that's not even my writing. Really, but the practice of getting on my knees, saying the third step prayer over and over and over like I was told to do, there was no doubt in my mind that that was God doing this writing for me. Something that I didn't want to do for over 2 years in a row, that practically I felt like it was killing me to do. Writing things that were so painful, not because they were bad, but to bring up things that hurt so much, that people that I thought hurt me so much, but then to write, like, I put myself in those situations. I allowed these things to happen. That's what the turnaround was. Like, why didn't I leave? You know? Why didn't I go? And instead, I thought my only choice was to drink more or to start doing a different substance, like a harder substance, one that would cause more pain to my family, you know? It was just years and years of not just hurting myself, it was just years of hurting everyone. Just a very, very enlightening experience. There's no doubt in my mind that it was God doing this for me, not something I would ever do on my own, ever. And out of that came a relationship with my sponsor that I never thought, I never told the truth to anybody. Maybe a little bit here and there. there was always that if I told you the truth, I would want something from you. Could you help me maybe down the road? You know what I mean? I might need your help. Maybe not for me, but for somebody. Maybe my daughter might need your help. It was always a hidden motive. There was nothing dirty about this. Nothing dirty. It was just clean. So if you're considering doing this, I highly recommend it. Might not be sitting up here all sparkly. I've been shoveling with a wet, furry hat on all morning, but I feel pretty good. I feel pretty happy today. I don't really know what happy is. I feel pretty clean. So if you're here listening, if you made it here in the snow, keep coming. And if you're writing, keep writing. And if you're reading, keep reading. And I think that's it. Thank you.